and eaten. It would require enormous skill to adapt to being digested, passed from the body and returned to the sea as untreated sewage. It is indeed a rare and very special piece of human excrement that can be heard singing the haunting song of the humpback whale. Whales. They're proud... No, it's all right, I'll do this bit. Fine. Whales. They're proud and magnificent and delicious. And I wonder, do Eskimos really need to make lipsticks out of them? Surely they should start off with something a little smaller. Good night. Space. Of all the frontiers, it is the last and perhaps the most final to be explored by man. The space race of the 1960s was a fast one. Who would get there first was the question. The cosmonauts or the astronauts? Well, it was actually a dog. But the moon was a different matter. It was much bigger. And when Buzz Aldrin uttered those most immortal words, "No, Neil, after you," America became the kings and queens of outer space. And they would be certainly no stranger to seeing this from their rocket ship windows. Well, obviously not this globe. This isn't to scale, it's a much larger arrangement, of course. Join with me now, then, as we examine this fascinating documentary about a fascinating subject, outer space, entitled Beyond the Moon. Enjoy. Well, obviously it's not called Beyond the Moon, Enjoy. There's space in between those words. When Orville and Wilbur Wright first invented the aeroplane in 1898, I wonder if they realised that exactly 104 years later, the Apollo 11 would land on the moon and Neil Armstrong would plant the American flag on its soil. Highly unlikely. That sort of detail, particularly knowing Neil Armstrong's name, would have required enormous precognitive ability. But despite the Wright brothers' ignorance of things to come, they happened anyway. $300 billion poured into the space program over the last 25 years. Money which could have been used to purchase loaves of bread for the starving. In fact, $300 billion would have purchased enough bread to stretch, ironically, from here to the moon. Even more ironically, rockets would have to have been used to take the bread out that far into space. Rockets which would not have been available due to the money for their manufacture being spent on the original purchase of the bread. Not only that, but the starving would not have benefited from the purchase of the bread owing to the wasteful use of that bread in the construction of the Earth-Moon Bridge. In any event, most of the loaves would have been stale by the time the unavailable rockets had brought them back to Earth or burned up on re-entry. And you can't feed the starving stale toast. Not without a condiment anyway. And unfortunately, the space program has only so much money. Jam alone costs almost $2.30 a jar. It would take the defence budgets of several United States of Americas to spread that much preserve on a dismantled and stale Earth-Moon toast bridge, even half that size. An inedible testament to man's thoughtlessness. As are these. Until next week, then. Until next week, then, this is Dave McGahan saying good night. Good evening, and welcome to a very, very special David McGahan's World for this week. I am David McGahan. Genetic engineering. It's a word that conjures up fear and terror into the hearts and ears of the common man. Or to be precise, two words that do those things that I just told you then. In his lifetime, man has dared to tamper with nature, to create several things, using his unnatural sciences to domesticate the chicken and create the Z-donk. But these atrocities pale into insignificance when compared with the abomination against God, that is, the nectarine. Half apricot, half plum, this Frankenstein of fruit is an unholy union which will one day, metaphorically, turn on its creator, pull the arm off a policeman and die in a burning windmill which has been torched by angry villagers, angry over the death of a blind hermit who taught it to speak, smoke cigars and learn to appreciate violin music. Let us then sit back and let this very somber... I think you get my meaning. As we watch this riveting documentary entitled Genetic Engineering, Wrong or What? Milk can be used to make other things than itself. Move it around a bit for a while and it becomes butter. Don't move it around a bit for a while and it becomes yogurt. Even longer and it becomes penicillin. Longer again and it evaporates. Such is the versatility of this plucky little beverage we call milk. These steel mills here in Germany's industrial Ruhr Valley, and famous for their prodigious output during the Second World War, are irrelevant. And so are these. Milk, a substance which can be enjoyed by everybody, unless, of course, you're lactose intolerant, in which case it can kill you. So remember when you next drink a drink of milk, that without it, you'd be raising an empty glass to your lips, or one with something else entirely in it. Good night, then. Cats. I love them. Dead or alive, they make ideal companions. Ruth Cracknell says that they lower stress and the heart rate of their owners. But how do they do it? Voodoo? Some black magic zombie ritual? It's a mystical thing that only God, our Heavenly Father, can understand. That is, until now. Hello, I'm David McGahan. Witness with me now as we watch these filmic images of nature's cat and listen to my narration of this fascinating documentary presentation that the whole family should watch, for rating purposes at the very least. Like the chicken, cats were invented by the Egyptians, except without the ability to lay eggs and cluck. Both couldn't fly, but for different reasons. Unlikely allies in a strange land.
He wears a bell just like a cow. He don't go moo, he goes meow. Cat, 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 cat.
My Sphinx hasn't got a nose. How does he smell? He doesn't. He's not alive and is made entirely from stone, even if he was.
There's much from them that we could learn. They bring us laughter and ringworm. Cat, 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 cat.
Cats are brown, as this exception to the rule proves.
Getting into all manner of strife. A Humphrey bear that kills native bird life. Cat, 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 cat.
Cat, 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 cat. Ironic, isn't it, that the very strings I played then are made from the very gut of the animal the song's about. Just another example of nature's delicate balance. As am I, David McGahan. Until then, good night. John F. Kennedy. Perhaps the finest assassinated American president ever to have lived. At least up until the point he died. Hello, I'm David McGahan. The mystery of who shot JFK remains shrouded in mystery. A cloak of silence hangs over it, hanging, some say, from the close hook of conspiracy. Also there beside it, on the hat rack of betrayal, is a hat. And whose head does it fit? Lee Harvey Oswald's? Or was the hat worn by the KGB? Presumably on some sort of roster basis. Only when the owner of both the Shroud of Mystery and the Cloak of Silence retrieves these garments with the dry cleaning ticket of confession will we know for certain. That is, until now. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the assassination of John F. Kennedy. John Frederico Kennedy was born here in this photograph in 1911. Though only a baby at the time, he possessed the ability to adapt that would make him famous. His body cells multiplied and he grew in size so that within a mere 4 decades he was much larger and 40. It was in this form that he would become the president he would eventually cease to be that fateful day in Memphis in 1963 when Lee Harvey Oswald allegedly stabbed him. But consider this, Lee Harvey Oswald has 3 names. So does the man who killed Abraham Lincoln, John Wilkes Booth. Sirhan, who assassinated Robert Kennedy, only had 2 names, but they were both the same. And the coincidence doesn't end there. The letters in Oswald's name add up to 15, as do the letters in Booth's name. Sirhan's first name adds up to 6, as does his second, and that's a total of 12. 12 plus 15 plus 15 is 42. The same age Kennedy was when elected to office, and exactly the number of feet between the motorcade and the grassy knoll when the first shot was heard, give or take a few feet. After the shooting, Oswald ran to a theatre. After his shooting, Booth ran to a bookshop. Though he did so over 100 years earlier, it doesn't alter the fact that the word shooting has 8 letters in it. Exactly the same number of letters in the name of Jack Ruby, who shot Oswald some 3 days later. Add that 3 to the 12 letters in Sirhan's name, and you get, that number again, 15. Half the number of letters in both Booth's and Oswald's names combined, 8 less than the total number of shots fired in the Kennedy assassination, and 2 more than John Wilkes Booth's middle name if you misspelled it. And what of the grassy knoll? The logic is inescapable, yet there are those who say that these figures prove nothing. Perhaps. But whether it be nothing or whether it be something, one thing is for certain. These creatures here. Well, I, for one, am not totally unconvinced that those goats were not involved. This is Dave McGahan, closing the book on yet another knee, and saying until next week then good night, as indeed I just did. Good evening to one and all, my dear and very good friends. Ever wondered where law and order comes from? Well, no wonder no longer, for here is a documentary. Here in my hands, of course, this is, in fact, a Chinese wooden man. But up there in the control room, ready to be edited in shortly after my introduction. And what an introduction it will be. An introduction would have ended by now, had it not been for the fact that I, in fact, referred to the fact that I was including it. Sit back, relax and enjoy the ironic denial of the very promise I was in the process of making. Not to mention further adding to the delay by acknowledging it, as I have now. Hello, I'm David McGahan. Sit back. Oh, we've already started. Though these men may resemble Father Christmas, they aren't him at all. Father Christmas has a long white beard, is fictitious and doesn't have a law degree. Judges, on the other hand, don't, aren't and do respectively. The difference is even more obvious when one visits them in a courtroom. Very few of the judges enter the building via the chimney. Purists maintain that this would tend to detract from the dignity of the court, as would these. Judges do, however, live in the North Pole, a place which lives up to its name in 2 important respects. It's northern and it's Polish, or polar, as some scientists would have it. One of these scientists is Professor Norris Austin, research chemist at Yale University and Nobel Prize winner, who unfortunately you won't be hearing from tonight owing to time restrictions and the fact that we haven't interviewed him. Well, there you have it, an exhaustive look at the Australian legal system. Until next week, then, when we present... Cholera. It's not as funny as you'd think. Though science has come a long way since primitive man first thought of splitting the atom, the scourge of all diseases, nature's cholera, still continues to affect up to 100% of those suffering from it. Why? Well, the easy answer would be, I don't know. I'm not a doctor specialising in that area. But it's an answer that the makers of this documentary you're about to see avoid like the very plague it's about. I've never in my entire life re-narrated such a fascinating thing as what you'll be seeing. And a warning to young viewers at home, don't you go handling electrical plugs without adult supervision. Though these people look happy enough, they're not. They're content enough to smile for our cameras, but deep down, cholera has made them sad. Cholera-infested villages like these in South America have little to recommend them and do an appalling tourist trade. No, sorry, I was just finding my place. Las Vegas, on the other hand, does extremely well with its enormous gambling industry and casino staff unaffected by pestilence. It's all right, no one will notice. Over 1 million people come to Las Vegas every year to play the tables and sit on the chairs. No one has ever contracted anything more serious than typhoid. No. don't. So too in start, winter revellers may die of ruptured internal organs or spinal injuries, but never anything more serious.
Cholera,
Cholera, la 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 la. Hey! That went rather well. So I think the message there is pretty clear. If you're thinking of going on a holiday this year, avoid going with a diseased chicken. And so, from Dave McGahan's world, this is me, Dave McGahan, bidding you, as they do in gay Paris, adios, muchachos.
Good evening. Yes, the history of dentistry is as long as the very teeth it's about. Good evening, I'm David McGahan. You know something? That's better. In 1933, an enterprising young dentist by the name of Karl Weintraub invented what could only be described as the dental training hook, a marvellous mechanism by which sputum was removed from the mouth during the examination. Join with me now as we sit back, relax and enjoy a riveting documentary on the history of the thing that I just said.
Teeth. It's what sets us apart from animals that don't have them. Animals like worms and the humble budgie. Not to mention also the shark. So not mentioned here today for the reason that it doesn't fit into the category of animals that don't have teeth. Here in Austria in 1957, when Linnaeus had not only died 200 years earlier, but in a completely different country, the very rules of animal classification were being redefined by this man. A man whose name will live forever across the vast eons of time, but which does escape me for the moment.
cat.
Cat. Our teeth. Like cutlery, you eat with them, but unlike cutlery, you don't clean them with tongue off. This is David McGahan. Bidding you until next week. Good evening.
Terrapins, tortoises, turtles. Call them what you will, they're all different animals. But none is more different than nature's very own wily fox. A cunning member